that's the talk of today. We're officially about to go. We're officially like streaming in a second. Well, actually,
I think we're streaming now.
I think we're streaming now, but it takes a second for it to go. Yeah, I think we're streaming now. Yeah. I usually look at the camera.
You look at the camera. Okay.
Hey.
I'm new to this. So.
But how I officially check it is I do like this, do like this. Yeah, I never really know if I'm live or not. I'm gonna keep it real with you.
That's okay.
But that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just us.
That's okay.
It's literally just us.
We're just talking.
Yeah. No, we're live.
Well, there we go.
There we go. We're live.
Hey,
we are
guys.
live. Hey guys. Okay. Well, welcome. You see how it says one current view?
Yeah.
That's me. Oh, Emma. She's saying Tanin. My face.
Oh my God,
Emma.
bestie.
Emma. Let me just say, the only other person I can talk to about Love Island is Tanin. But I'm still behind, so.
Yeah, we won't say anything.
For all my Love Island people out there. Hi.
This is why I love her.
Emma's that girl. Okay. Guys, welcome to not my first live, but my first podcast live with my best friend, Tanin. Aww. Now, the reason why we're not waiting for more viewers to come in is because I might post this video to, like, an actual video.
Yeah.
And so it's just raw, unedited live stream. This will be... We are about to watch... Oh, I will not spoil. We're about to watch the Love Island. Yeah, don't spoil. This is my first ever podcast live, and YouTube gives me an option to put it under a playlist of things. And so I think this... We talked about sometimes... Danae. Hey, Danae.
My two favorite people.
We talked about sometimes how... Sometimes we'll have very funny lives, and sometimes we'll have educational lives, and then sometimes we'll have serious lives. And I think we'll figure out a way to still laugh. But I think this will be more of a serious live. But anyways, this, I guess, category of my life, life and live is called Strangers and Their Stories. And although Tanin is no stranger to me, I think the beauty of life and the beauty of strangers is that everyone has a story, which is evident. Tanin and I actually just came from a room full of strangers meeting and sharing stories, and I think that's the beautiful part. Now, when I used to do a podcast, it used to be not the best, but I would introduce people, so let me introduce you. Okay. Guys, this is Tanin. She is world-renowned Persian.
Crazy.
She is in dental school. She worked many jobs. She is full of wisdom. She comes from a loving family, especially her mom. And her dad is unreal, too. Very handsome guy. Tanin loves to dance. She loves to eat food.
Love food.
She worked at a restaurant before.
I did.
She also played tennis.
There you go. See, you remember things about me.
Ah, girl. And she loves to love, and I think that is the main topic of today. And it's always like hard, like how can you transition into something? But so the topic of today is can I ever love again? This goes both ways, and I think this will be a good topic. And I don't know if this is live, so like, are we supposed to look at each other, or we're gonna figure it out. We'll figure it out. What did Danae say? Mark's
spitting random facts.
W.
Accurate.
Yes. Best facts. Ali said, love this topic. Insert Mark trying to use his memory. That's funny. Yeah. Can I ever love again? And more importantly, the difficulties of love. And do you see how that door is kind of slanted?
Yeah.
Tell me if I just fixed it. I made it worse.
Yeah. That's...
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Guys, you guys just got to show. Okay.
That's good.
It could be better, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You know, that's the part of the live, authentic.
Being raw.
Being everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I have some questions for Tanin, but I want to. Okay, obviously Dora.
Hi,
Um,
Dora.
obviously everyone has a story, and so we can talk about many stories, but we're focusing on "Can I Ever Love Again?" And it's a very like vulnerable, serious story. And shoot, we didn't get tissues, but
It's fine. We're gonna do our best.
we're
not
gonna
to
do our,
cry.
we're gonna do our best not to cry. But if you guys read the description, I talk about how this story of Tanin kind of I got to witness it live and it got to change my life and it was beautiful. And I want not the world to like literally I say the world when it's only 9 viewers, but I want people to know it too, and I want people to I guess join us as strangers and in this beautiful journey of just trying to figure out love and the difficulties of love. Because God knows love can be pretty hard.
We're still learning.
We actually are. Okay. Tanin, did I say Tanin was dating a guy or
Yeah.
okay? Tanin was dating a beautiful guy, and his name is FIFA. Actually, we're going to. Okay, one of the questions. Oh gosh, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's okay.
One of my questions is like remembering his name. The word FIFA is common, so it's like FIFA soccer. Let's play FIFA online, and it's like how do you cope with when you constantly hear FIFA? My cousin's on when he got okay. So FIFA's dating. Tini was dating this guy FIFA, and he was amazing. He's beautiful, and FIFA is no longer with us. And I was just wondering if you can share with the viewers what illness he had.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, FIFA was diagnosed with oral cancer. It started off by thinking he just bit his tongue and it wasn't getting better. He went to a dentist. They kind of rubbed it off. So, big reason why I'm in dental school now.
Another question I have, but we'll get to it.
Long story short, he ended up being diagnosed with stage 4 oral cancer. A couple months later, he had surgery. His surgery cut off about half of his tongue, and he had a reinsertion. They like sewed it up with a graft using from his wrist and his thigh, and he went into remission around March of last year. And then this past year, he went on deployment when I started dental school, actually. And in December, he went into cardiac arrest. He was in a medically induced coma for a couple of months, and in March, he passed away.
Thank you. And then we'll.
It's okay.
It's just roller coaster.
We're gonna.
But because everyone always asks me like, and I always share that story wrong. I think my question is, do you? Oh, my first question that I didn't really know. Did he go into multiple comas?
No, he went into one. So what happened is he woke up in the middle of the night. He wasn't able to breathe.
He was deployed.
He was deployed.
Okay, so he served.
Yes, he was serving overseas. Can't disclose where, but he was serving overseas.
Yeah.
And he had pain throughout the deployment, and so he went to the medic there. The medic told him that he was just healing, and so they prescribed him naproxen, which is the equivalent of like ibuprofen or Advil. Whole time he did have a tumor. It came back, but he didn't know this. The medic didn't know this. And so in the middle of the night one night, it was actually 2 days before Thanksgiving, and he couldn't breathe anymore. He knocked on the medic's door, and he knocked on his friend's door, actually, and the friend ran to the medic, woke her up in the middle of the night. By the time the medic came back, he went into cardiac arrest. They did CPR on him for about 8 minutes. He came back to life. They moved him to an American hospital in Germany, where he went into another cardiac arrest and into a seizure. That's when they put him in a medically induced coma. Typically, you're supposed to wake up once you stop having seizures and things like that, and you start to lower the dose of the medication. And for him, he never woke up, even once they fully got rid of all the medications. So.
Okay, so he never went into a coma for military purposes.
No.
It was always his
It was always the cancer. So the tumor was in his throat. So when he had tongue cancer, the reason why it was stage 4, it spread to his lymph nodes. They removed all his lymph nodes. My guess, and some other doctors' guesses, are that when they did the surgery, they didn't fully remove everything. And so one of the lymph nodes that was infected might have still been in there. And that's what turned into the tumor. It compromised his throat, and that's when he couldn't breathe.
Okay.
and then it just blocks the oxygen from going to your brain.
And then he was in a coma for, I remember, for a while.
107 days.
Oh.
I counted.
Tanin. Okay. Thank you for sharing. I got the blessing of actually meeting FIFA, and I know it was such a bright time and a good time. And
You're his favorite.
thank you. Well, I loved him, and something that was difficult for me realizing at the time, which like looking back at it, like we think this problem is big until another problem is way bigger, was that you guys were long distance, but you guys weren't always long distance.
No.
You became long distance only when you got into dental school?
Only when I got into dental school, correct.
Okay. And then, so I guess my question for you is like, when you got into dental school, did he have cancer?
No. Well, from my understanding, he did not.
Yeah.
He went into remission, so he fully was cancer-free.
He had cancer before dental school?
He had cancer before dental school. So
Okay.
he was diagnosed in 2023. He went into remission 2024, March of 2024. And then
We went to school.
we went into school last July, August. And then he went on his deployment in September, and the cardiac arrest happened in November. So it came back in less than a year.
But when you were in school, was he deployed? Was he serving?
When I started school,
Yeah.
no, he was still in DC. His last weekend was Labor Day weekend. He came down and visited me, and from here he left to go overseas.
Okay. Because one of my thoughts was that long distance is obviously very difficult, but super rewarding. And I didn't know if he was like had cancer or. Okay, I'll ask you this question: when you guys are long distant and he called or you called, hearing his voice must have felt amazing. Now, did you get to at all call him after the cancer came back strong, or at that point it was too late to talk to him on the phone, or did he get to tell you like my cancer is back or something like that?
So that was the hard thing, is supposedly he found out that he had cancer right before he left, but did not want me to know. So he made it into this whole thing that in his mind, he explained this to me afterwards, that it was going to be too much for me to go through it again because I was with him. His family didn't have the resources to be with him, so I was the only one that was with him the first time around, and I think he didn't want to do this now that I was achieving my dreams. So I didn't know, and so when I spoke to him, I wasn't aware of this.
Okay.
And then later on, I received letters, and that's a whole other thing.
I had one of my questions. My question said, in the days before he fell into a coma, what unspoken feelings were you both holding back? But now you're telling me that you knew he kind of hid from you that he got cancer again.
He
To
had,
protect you,
yeah.
to protect each other.
I think probably both, and I think also to protect his mission, because I think if he were to have disclosed anything, he wouldn't have been able to achieve. And like his favorite line to this, I mean, it always stuck with me, is why save 1,000 when you could save 1,000,000? And so anything that happened to him, I don't want to say that he didn't care, but he cared about everyone else around him more than I would say he probably did for himself.
Looking back at it, you know how you said you didn't know that he had it, but he knew he had it and hid it from you? Looking back at it, can you see a change of tone or he acted a little bit differently over the phone with those period? Did you guys get into more lovey-dovey, or did you guys get into more fights? Was he, maybe looking back at it, did you guys, or was he under pressure? Did he change? Did he get mad quickly? And you're like, why is he getting so mad all the time? Now you know, maybe like he knew he had cancer again, stuff like that, or he just stayed.
He wasn't, so I'll say this, we never argued. In the long time that we were dating, we never argued at all. With him, I would say it was his tone maybe that changed a little bit. And
I mean, you probably could feel it.
Yeah, and reflecting on it, I think it was a sense of fear, but I kind of took that fear as him being deployed on what was going to be considered a very dangerous mission. And he was a very fearless man. Like, he thought he could do it. He thought he was invincible.
Yeah.
But he never raised.
I say that too. Yeah.
He never really raised his voice or anything, but you could see that there was a very like stark difference as well. And naturally, like, it is harder to be lovey-dovey when you are just talking over the phone.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's probably the hardest part about it. But he did a very good job of not making you feel like you were worlds apart,
Right.
even though it felt that way when you weren't talking.
Right. Right. Now I'm only saying this, although we're getting kind of vulnerable because we're on live, but because I'm your best friend and I know this. But uh, did you guys have an argument of some sort before his passing away?
Yeah, we had one.
And like I know you guys didn't argue,
Mm-hmm.
but something about like a difference. I don't know what happened.
A
And
lot. I mean, I'm happy to share
Okay,
exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Is that I didn't want him to go on the deployment, especially after being
Fair.
diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
To me, it didn't make sense why. And I'm not a political person, so I'm not going to try to be political in any way. But to me, I personally don't understand how the government can send someone right less than a year after they've gone into remission. And at this point, he didn't know he had cancer. I didn't know the cancer came back. We don't know if it stayed the whole time. Was he actually in remission? We don't even know at this point what it was. And so for him, he was like, it's my duty. I have to do this. For someone like me or even his mother, it's hard for us to understand why. And it's hard when you're not in the service. And so I learned a lot and gained a lot of respect for people in the service. But at the same time, I lost some respect to the people that are higher up that aren't looking out for them because you're not giving them their best chances.
Now here comes the sad part. Can you say that that conflict, I'm not going to call it an argument, got resolved or no?
No.
And then this is where I'm going with it. And I think you see where I'm going with it. It's like you never know if that fight is going to be the last fight. Or let's say I'm talking to my friend Jonathan, or I'm talking to my friend Mark, whatever. And I'm like, Mark, like screw you, whatever. Like, bro, get out of my face. God forbid Mark gets in a car crash or I get in a car crash. You don't think about it until you hear that movie story of it. Like, oh, you only hear that in movies. Well, I feel like you kind of lived a movie story. And I don't know, looking back at it, what if you... Obviously, you would have changed something if you knew what was coming. But did the conflict at all, looking back at it, still stay true to your heart? It was a valid feeling from your side, and it was a valid feeling from his side? It's a difficult one, right?
Yes and no. Yes, because I think everything happens for a reason, and those were our raw emotions in the moment, and so I can't contradict that in any way. But no, at the same time, where I think maybe we could have gone about it differently, but I feel like I only say that knowing now what the result was.
Yeah, of course.
If he didn't pass, I don't know if my answer would be the same, truthfully.
Yeah. And so I remember being in school, and you would constantly fly out whenever you can, or any break we had, you would, instead of going home, being with him. Talk to me a little bit about, he's in a coma at this point, and you're visiting him. How do you have that willpower of like waking up and being like, okay, I'm gonna go see FIFA today, knowing that FIFA is not gonna be seeing you? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my love for him is what drove me to be there.
Did love? Obviously, you loved him.
Yeah.
Did your love change for him after he got into that coma?
No.
Okay. Did your love grow for him?
Yeah, but my love for him grew every day.
Coma or not?
Coma or not.
Okay.
Even when he was long distance, even when we hadn't talked in 2 months, every day it grew for him. Because even outside of our relationship, and he was someone I know that I was going to marry, like point blank period. Like my parents knew, his parents knew, all that stuff. But yeah, no, when someone means so much to you outside of a relationship, but just as a human being, your love for them grows every single day.
Yeah.
And so it was no questions asked that for my breaks, I was going to go home every day and be with him. And it was the same for when I was taking care of him when he was in the hospital the first time around too. I stayed overnight at the hospitals when you weren't allowed to. The ICU nurses allowed me to, because it's also different than having a mom or a child there, because they tend to get in the way sometimes of the nurses and stuff. And for me, being someone that was in healthcare, I kind of let them do what they needed to do, but I also was able to advocate for him, because for him, his surgery was in his mouth, so he wasn't able to speak. So if he wasn't able to click any buttons or like tell the nurse if he was in pain or something, so we always wrote on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. I still have that piece of paper actually with all of our like little notes to each other, and he would be like, I want you to stay here tonight, even though I haven't showered in like 5 days. And I'm like, it's okay. But
that's actually one of my questions. It was what's a small everyday thing that you shared with him that now holds a new meaning to you? Now, of course, you can apply this question to like before he's in a coma, when you guys just lived amongst each other. Like, what's an everyday thing you guys did, like looking back at it, you cherish it, or what's a moment you wish you could? It's a deep question, but kind of relive with him if you could be with him now.
Honestly, it was the talking, and it was something that we said to each other, because even after his surgery, the first month, he not only was he not able to speak, he had to go back to speech pathology and things like that. He was very insecure. His smile was crooked. He felt like he didn't look the same as he used to, and he, to me, was a very attractive man. And so, and so when we did get the opportunity to have talks, and that's kind of what drew us to each other, was that we could talk for hours on end and there would never be a halt in the conversation.
Yeah.
And it could be about the silliest thing, or it could be about the deepest thing in the world, and it could be both things at the same time. And so I think I miss his voice. I miss the depth of our conversations. I miss everything about him, honestly.
Let me ask you a tricky question. So, FIFA passed away, your boyfriend passed away, but if I had to say, what do you miss more? His words, or his presence, or the way he listened? If you had to pick one, and why?
I would say his presence, because his presence, even when silent, was so loud to me. Like, I could just be sitting in a room and he could be sitting in a room and we wouldn't say anything to each other, and you would feel the love in the room, or you felt safe, or you felt supported. But in that comes also being able to listen, and being like, he was the best listener I honestly have ever met. You were never afraid to be judged. You were never afraid to be cut off, if anything.
Yeah.
He never got defensive.
You know, you bring up silence, and it makes me question when you're sitting there in silence when he's in a coma, looking at him or doing whatever you were doing, did you discover anything new about yourself?
For me, probably that someone's, this sounds very cliche, but like how powerful someone's aura can be, as opposed to like their words. Because oftentimes you say like personality is what matters the most, or like what people are saying matters the most, or like how often they're listening. But for me, it was just him as a human being. And he was like this with all his friends too. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if there's like a better word for his aura.
I get it.
But
I get it.
It radiated, quite honestly.
I think it radiated from so many reasons. He was like very handsome, shredded, all that stuff, but he was in uniform. I respect people in uniform tremendously.
Yeah.
Now here's my deep question for you. You brought up how like the conflict was about don't go to war, basically, or don't serve. And I'm sure you deeply respect people in uniform as well.
Yeah, of course.
But when you see someone in uniform today, does it bring you remorse? Or do you smile at the thought of FIFA? Or do you hurt at the thought of FIFA?
It's both, because I have had this actually very recently. Or even whenever I hear anything about the military, it does hit home a little bit harder for me, because I also grew up not really knowing anyone in the military. So this was my first experience with it. I think I gain a sense of respect, but I also gain a sense of fear that person, God forbid anything were to happen, that their families would go through the same thing, or their friends or significant others would. And it has happened to so many people. I know FIFA's not the only story. I think
that's the crazy part, how, you know, we're talking about how we're strangers, but millions of strangers are witnessing something like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like you were saying, it's bittersweet seeing someone in uniform.
Yeah, it is for sure. Because to me, like, when it first happened, I wanted to blame the military.
I don't see how you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't. I also see, like, maybe you would blame the doctors that, like, did you tell me they didn't biopsy it?
Yeah. So when he thought he bit it, he went, they prescribed him a mouthwash. They're like, if it doesn't get better, come back, we'll refer you out. He obviously comes back, they refer him out, he goes to an oral surgeon. the oral surgeon incised or cut the lesion, what was a tumor, but they just said it was inflammation or like muscle growing on top of itself. Now, knowing what we've learned in dental school,
True.
you don't necessarily do that because anything that's cut in any office has to be biopsied.
Yeah.
They just threw it away.
Yeah.
And so when he came home, I was like, why didn't they biopsy? And me having been worked at a dental office, I knew kind of what they needed to do, but I didn't go with him to the appointments, and now I really wish I did. He didn't know what to ask for. He didn't know what to advocate for himself. So he's putting his trust in those doctors.
Right.
And so when they didn't biopsy it, I'm like, why wouldn't you do that? And obviously you don't want to scare him either, because the last thing we ever thought, he was the healthiest person in the world.
Right.
He was young. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He didn't do anything. He didn't have any risk factors that would have led to a diagnosis like this.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the hardest thing. And then once it was biopsied, the results came in late. And then by the time he did get the results, it was cancer. And then by the time he wanted to book an appointment, they don't book you in the week after. You have to wait almost 2-3 months for you to even get a spot. And at that point, it only spreads further.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to say, in this grief that you're going through, and I'm sure still going through, what has this grief taught you about love in the sense of it being in long distance, and how fragile long distance love is? If you were to talk to someone and they're like, Tanin, I'm thinking about going into a long distance relationship. So, you were in a long distance relationship. Of course, that person is not thinking that person might pass away.
Yeah.
But with your grief now, what would you tell that person that's also in a long distance relationship? What are perhaps some key things that do this, send that extra text, stuff like that? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, exactly that. I would cherish those little moments. I would be willing to make phone calls. I know for me, if I could have had one last phone call, I would have. And something that I didn't tell anyone, honestly, and I will have some explaining to do to some people, but he found a way to be able to reach out to me like a month prior to all of this happening. And so he did, and he requested a phone call actually the night before he collapsed. And I told him, I said, can I call you after the exam? If I had listened, if I had called him,
he was able to call?
It was on this encrypted app, and he was able to through the U.S. Embassy. And that was the only safe space.
You didn't call?
I didn't call. I was with you. Studying.
You were with me?
I was studying in the library with you. And I didn't, because you know our study nights. And so to me, how am I to think? I didn't know it was going to be our last time. Damn. I didn't know that was my last opportunity to ever hear his voice again. And so I said, I call you tomorrow after the exam? And I blame myself for this, and it's taking everything in me. And that's a whole other thing, and that's something I'm still grappling with. But it's hard not to, because then the last thing I heard was, how was your exam? And I responded, and I hadn't heard back. And at that was the point when he was already in his coma.
Dang.
So I would say cherish those little moments.
You
send that extra text message.
Okay, I have a vulnerable question for you now.
Okay.
And this is live, so you can say out loud, I don't want to answer this, or you can figure it out. Why would you not tell me at the time that, like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Why wouldn't I have told you that we were talking?
Yeah. Or
I didn't know how
you're trying to protect me? You're trying to protect, like, you knew the vibe would go down?
I think I was trying to protect myself. Looking back on it, I think I could probably try to come up with an excuse of, I was trying to protect you, I was trying to protect our other two friends, but no, I think I was just trying to protect myself. I think that I was still grappling with all the emotions around the situation and kind of being afraid of when he was going to come back. Like, was he going to have PTSD? Was our relationship going to change? What were things going to be like when he came back? Because I knew what his days were like when he was there overseas. And I've heard the stories of before when he came back, and his friends used to tell me, like, he won't talk to anyone for like 5 days. He needs time to recover and stuff. And so, I kind of just kept that to myself.
Sorry for the deeper questions, but if you could go back, or even now, if you can leave him, let's say you could answer that call or give him a call, and you can leave him one message, whether it's a sentence or a paragraph, you can, or even if that call was today, if you can leave him one message for today, to where he can only hear it but not respond back, what would it be? And I know
It's hard.
I know it's a hard one.
It's like, it would be two things, and I feel like one is what I would probably say, and another is what I selfishly would have wanted to say, but I don't know if I would have been able to. The one I would have said is "I love you."
And that's a big one for me.
And that's what, because, and I do it now too, like if I'm in a situation that's dangerous or something, my mom is going to get a text message saying "I love you."
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Yeah.
What I would have loved to say is "come back." Because if he had the resources, there would have been a chance he never had to be placed into a coma and they could have treated it.
Yeah.
But everything, because he was overseas and they don't have the right resources over there and things like that, and they put him in that coma, for every day you're in a coma is 1 week's worth of recovery. So if you're in a coma for 107 days, chances are you're going to be handicapped the rest of your life.
Yeah.
From just the brain damage and everything like that. And there are success stories, and I obviously prayed for a miracle that he was going to be one of them.
And that's where praying even gets difficult, because we pray for a miracle, and I know I texted you this personally, but he passed away, and we wonder, like, was that the miracle, or was the miracle not answered? And you never know.
Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but he was in pain.
He was in pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we reached out to doctors, and they were always like, "Oh, it's the healing. You had a big surgery. These things don't heal overnight.
Yeah.
It's sore." And if anything, I would just say, listen to your pain, if anything. And and that's not to scare anyone, of course, but you sometimes know your own body than other people will, no matter what. Even as two people that want to become providers, as much as we're gaining knowledge, no one will know a person's body better than themselves.
I shared with you randomly, we weren't even talking about breast cancer, but I shared with you that best way to discover breast cancer is to literally feel yourself.
Yeah.
And you said it best, like, your body. And so listen to it. Now you talk about being providers, and my question to you is, how can you add FIFA and his story to your everyday daily choices? And I'm saying this because I know what you do and what you want to do, but this passion of yours, I'll talk to the camera here because I know that not a lot of people know, but Tanin is obviously so passionate about helping people with, can we call it oral cancer? Oral cancer. But she was passionate before it, I'm sure, but I think she's on fire for it now. And do you feel like that's a way of carrying his legacy to help other people and find diagnosis quicker, better, all that?
To some degree. I think that's the obvious thing that I want to do is I would, if I could prevent this from happening to even one more person, especially at a young age, I would.
You applied to dental school before you got cancer? No, sorry. You had interest in dental school before you even had oral cancer.
I did.
What a weird thing God did
medicine.
There.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to be a dentist. My boyfriend passed away from oral cancer.
I actually got my acceptance into dental school the day he was discharged from the hospital. And I remember it was bittersweet because it was like a great day for both of us.
Right.
Mine was my dream was coming true. For him, he finally got to get out of the hospital for the first time. And he wasn't, and he used to tell me this all the time, how he wished he could have said the words congratulations to me, and he wasn't even able to do that. So he wrote it on a piece of paper for me.
That's so
and
cute.
He was like, I always wanted to go into medicine. I always wanted to help people. But this drove me even further, especially into wanting to go into the specialty of oral cancer. With that being said, do I think that that's my main thing as to how I carry his legacy? No. I think for me, it's the way he loved his friends is the way I would like to love my friends and my family.
Yeah.
He was a brother to so many people.
Yeah.
And everyone came to him for everything. And so he was the definition of love unconditionally. Even if you hurt him, even if you hurt someone else, he would listen to you. He would hear you out. He would hear the other person out. He was such a neutral person that didn't care for the dramatics, didn't care for the pettiness or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he always said, just put yourself first and remember that we're here on earth for not a long time, but make every minute as valuable as you can.
You know, yeah. And I think, we could sit here and we can say, should I hold weight on my shoulders for having the regret of carrying all these questions that will go unanswered because, obviously he's not here. Obviously you had a million questions to ask him. He probably had a million questions to ask you. You talk about say I love you more. I struggle with that. And I learned from you personally, just watching you and your story. It's so important to say I love you, whether you say it or you show it, because you just never know. Mm-hmm. And I think it's crucial to realize that, just like FIFA said, you just never know, so live your life to the fullest. And I could say to you, the title is "Can I Ever Love Again?" And it's a tricky title because it's kind of a clickbait, because you can love again, and I think, and I can love again, mm-hmm. and anyone can. Will the love be the same? No. Will the love is that love not being the same bad? No. Mm-mm. Can your next love be greater in a different way? Maybe. Can that love that's different come from the amount of love you had for him, and you take it in and you show it to somebody else? Yeah, and I think I'm the same way. Just like with everything I was going through in the past, it's like I messed up so many times, but I can learn from that, take that love and put it in a different way. Mm-hmm. And this whole topic of like strangers and their stories, it's just that you're a stranger and he's a stranger, but your stories affected me, and I want it to affect somebody else. And I think I just learned so many crucial points in the aspect of like, it's long distance. I got to see this in real life. It's long distance, but cherish even the small text. Like, be goofy. You always talk about how you're goofy with him. Talks on the bench. You talked about mm-hmm. just you guys have a bench, and you talk all day long apparently on the bench. Yeah. And I don't know. Looking back at it, it's just like you're so young, and he is so young, mm-hmm. and you guys were obviously together, and I'm sure the pain of growing old with someone, and you're a grandpa and grandma, and like let's say you're 80 and your partner passes away. Yes, it hurts, but you're planning it. But no one talks about losing a partner under the age of 30, and I think it will shape you only in such a beautiful way for you to love more and more and more. And I think in some way FIFA will always have a part of like how you love. And would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think going to like also just the question of can I ever love again?
Yeah.
I'm still like learning it to some degree, but I think I really thought that I wasn't gonna be able to. Yeah. But I think I realized, because you feel like you've lost a half of you.
Right.
And you don't know if you're ever going to feel whole again. But to feel whole again, you have to learn to love yourself again. So you kind of have to go backwards. Because people always say you can't get into a relationship unless you love yourself. And I think you end up losing love for yourself when you lose someone, whether it is a significant other, whether it is a family member or a friend or even a pet or whatever it may be. It's still a part of you. And so you just have to relearn how to value yourself and your life, and know that they wouldn't want you to live your life just in sadness of them.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
I agree. Tanin, it's funny because we always joke around. So it's like we've gone 40 minutes not saying a joke. So we gotta crack a big booty joke.
Very, very impressive for us, actually.
No, actually, like this is totally not how we are alone. But all I want to say is that you took something horrible, and you're living a life of being beautiful. Not only you're beautiful, but your story is beautiful. Your impact is beautiful. I know as your friend, you're working on being an advocate and being a voice for those who are suffering through and going through the process with oral cancer. You are requesting that there's screenings done and research to be done, that people can be impacted, you and your friends. And all I can say is that I am a nobody, but I feel honored to be a somebody to you. And more so, I'm honored to be someone who got to meet FIFA and see you too, and see how you you kept pushing and you kept going even when your world stopped. And you inspired me. And thank you for being on this podcast and loving me and showing me that even in young love, because we talk about young love all the time, in young love or in distant love, that love is love in the sense of if it's true and it's real, it will last. Mm-hmm. Even if that person is away, it will last.
You carry it with you every single day.
You carry it with you every single day. And I'm proud of you. And this is the first ever podcast episode of Strangers and Their Stories. So
I feel honored.
I'm gonna give you a hug. Thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for helping me be vulnerable. This is actually probably the first time I've kind of talked about it without someone trying to give me a therapy session.
So. My boy cousin Gibby, he texted W Tanin and said, like, thank you, bro. Gibby, I hope I see you on the podcast. Tanin, you inspire me every day, and
you inspire me too. I hope you know. I couldn't have gotten through. Genuinely, I could not have gotten through this past year without him.
Thank you.
So he has been one of my core rocks through this whole process. And people are very, very lucky to have you in their life.
I'm lucky to have you, and you show me that love is worth fighting for. Which I know the audience doesn't know me that much. I mean, actually, it's 9 people, so it's probably my family. They probably all know me, but love is a tricky word for me. And my heart is hardened, but you soften it, and your story softens it. And if nothing else, I said this my very first live. It's like this live is for me, so that I can go back and listen to beautiful stories with my friends. And maybe, one day when I'm walking the red carpet, this will be fun to watch.
And I'll be right there.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
But, oh, look. Tanin inspires all of us. Oh, Mirla.
Mirla, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Thanks for joining our first ever, what do we call it? Strangers. Thanks for watching first ever Strangers and Their Stories podcast live. And I'm so happy that it was Tanin. It can only get... Wait, actually, that's an insult to you. I was going to say it can only get better.
No, it can only get better.
No.
It can only get better.
It will stay the same. It will be good. And yeah, we will definitely see you in the next one. You want to say